The Scarlet Knights will head to East Lansing to take on the Michigan State Spartans, ranked 10th nationally. Here to preview that game, I'm joined by Tom Luicci. Thank you, Tom. Now, this Michigan State team, particularly talented on defense, ranked 8th nationally in total defense, allowed just 6 rushing yards last weekend. What can the Knights do to overcome that? Is it really going to depend on Josh Hicks, Robert Martin, or Nova airing it out? What is it that they can do?
Well, there's a couple things. You have to try to run the ball effectively because, A, we've talked about this ad nauseum. That's what Rutgers wants to do. And then, B, if you can do that, and when I say effectively, it doesn't have to be 7, 8, 9-yard chunks. It can be 3 and 4. What it does is it sets you up in the passing game because, as Coach Flood has talked about all week, Michigan State wants to load the box. They're gonna try and get mismatches in there, more people in the box than you have to block. That leaves the corners one-on-one with the receivers. And if I'm Rutgers, I want to take my chances with Leonte Carril on any defensive back, even the good ones that Michigan State has. So if you can get something out of the running game, just a little bit, 3, 4 yards, it sets up your passing game. You're going to get one-on-one situations on the perimeter. And Rutgers, as we've said, we've seen this all year, they have talented receivers. They have guys capable of making big plays, and that's where they're going to have to do their damage.
And Michigan State also incredibly well-rounded on offense with Cook and Langford. What can the Knights defense do to stop them? Where do they really need to put the focus this week?
Cook, Langford, and Lippett, the wide receiver, because there's 4 teams in the country averaging 245 yards per game rushing and passing. Michigan State's one of them. This Michigan State team is the highest scoring team in school history. They have the most offensive touchdowns in school history. And now you're talking about a 1,000-yard rusher in Langford. You're talking about a just about 1,000-yard receiver in Lippett. And you're talking about a pretty solid, experienced quarterback. So, again, this might be the toughest challenge in terms of the balance that Rutgers has faced all year.
But it's supposed to be sloppy and messy with the weather that day, cold, kind of rainy. Can that work to the Knights' advantage? Will it impact Michigan State at all? Is it gonna hurt the Scarlet Knights? What do you think it will do for that game?
You know, I would think the advantage would be a little bit for Michigan State only because they play on grass all year. Rutgers hasn't played a grass game this season, so this is the first one. The conditions themselves, in terms of the cold or the wind, wouldn't be as much of a factor in my mind than a wet, sloppy field that, you know, like you've talked about. And Coach Flood addressed that today. He said by the 4th quarter it could be messy. The key is getting to that 4th quarter within striking distance so that if the field is a factor, it's a factor for both teams. But I can envision that being a factor in the game at some point.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. That game will air on Big Ten Network at noon. From the Bubble with Tom Luicci, I'm Taryn Hatcher.